everyone, Bateman with PIXERA here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Or this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. I'm really excited to welcome in one of my colleagues, our principal creative technologist, Tavia Mora, to talk about our new TouchDesigner and Renderbridge feature. Hello, Tavia.
Hi, how you doing, Bateman?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Very excited to be here.
Good, 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 good. Okay, so we are going to talk about our new Renderbridge feature with our TouchDesigner plugin.
Mhm.
Kind of talk to me a little bit about it. I know we've got some slides to show, so maybe we just jump there, and I'll just
Sure.
let you go and kind of ask some questions as we go.
That sounds great.
All right, so this great slide. PIXERA loves TouchDesigner. I mean, we do love
Mhm,
TouchDesigner.
mhm.
They've been we've been a fan of theirs for a while, and we're really excited to get this thing implemented into what we're doing over here. So yeah, go ahead and give us some information.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to start a little bit with requirements. This integration currently is in beta, and as of yesterday, I believe, right, 26.1 R1 just released.
That is correct. So just to kind of pause on that for a little bit, we've got a new release out. If you didn't know, 26.1 R1 is now released. So please go download it from Pixera.1.
hmm Definitely. And when you open it up under the compositing tab and a little button on the resources pane, you'll see it's called VR. When you click that button, you're going to see the TouchDesigner beta available in that dropdown. With regard to requirements, you will definitely need a valid TouchDesigner license, and that means it's going to need to be a commercial or pro license only. Non-commercial does not work in this case.
So, can you tell me a little bit more? I know a little bit about the TouchDesigner licenses. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the kind of differences there, and
Mhm.
how it would affect a user? If you're going to use this on a show for something.
Yeah, 100%. So non-commercial is the like lowest tier for TouchDesigner, and it's completely free. They do limit your resolution to 1280 by 720. As mentioned, that one is not compatible with PIXERA. If you were to try to load that in without a license, you won't see it load at all. But if you do have something like commercial set up that can be of any version that you have paid up to, then it will 100% populate. And of course, pro as well. The difference between commercial and pro is mostly with the available feature set. So if you're doing more advanced stuff like black tracks or something, that's available in pro, but not so much in commercial.
And to be clear, those that the feature sets you're talking about are related to TouchDesigner features, not
hmm
Pixera features. So the
Yeah.
commercial licenses are and the pro licenses are for TouchDesigner things. So
Yep.
depending on your TouchDesigner project, those licenses will affect things, not necessarily how we see it in Pixera.
Can confirm.
All right.
That's absolutely true.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for going over that.
Of course. In addition to those licenses, you also will need a tox file. It's a tox file, not a TOW file. We'll go over this in a little bit, but the tox file is the kind that is compatible with import into Pixera. And of course, the better GPU you have, the more processing power you have. It's highly recommended if you can do it. If not, maybe consider dropping your resolution or other things like that.
Yeah, and I want to kind of stick on that for a little bit because, we're going to be running this demo on a machine that I have here, which is it's not a not powerful machine, but it certainly isn't the beefiest machine in the world.
Mhm.
You can run TouchDesigner on pretty much anything, but more a better PC, more GPU performance is going to mean a smoother project, better playback, that sort of thing. And as I understand it, importantly, TouchDesigner isn't gonna throttle you in any way, and neither will Pixera. So it's kind of something that you, as a programmer, as a user, are gonna have to clock. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, the more powerful hardware you have, the better, but it is also on the user to program their show with the most amount of efficiency in mind. And luckily, there's tons of tools, both in TouchDesigner and in Pixera to help optimize that.
Great.
hmm Okay, let's talk a little bit more about known limitations with our current integration. Obviously, we're working on this every day, but I also want to take a moment to outline what the limitations are that we are aware of. This integration is in beta. And so one big one I want to touch on is that multi-server sync is not currently supported. It is only local. And that means that if you were pursuing something like a manager and client setup inside of PIXERA, and hoping that TouchDesigner will play out to those clients and also stay in sync, it's not something that we currently support. But we are working on confirming this internal sync mechanism. And I did some testing recently, and the initial tests are going really well.
Okay, so just to say that I to ask you in some different words, if you have a bunch of servers and you're trying to do a bunch of outputs right now, TouchDesigner won't work across all those servers. So it would be something for just a local machine and local playback. But I know we've talked about it. I've talked to some other folks on the dev team about it. I know it's something we're working on and something that we're excited to get out.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it.
Great.
100%. So I want to pause and also mention that here with the known limitations, that underneath the hood, like the TouchDesigner integration itself is using Touch Engine. And with Touch Engine, there's a couple of expectations of what may work with that. I also want to highlight that DATs are not currently supported. That's something that typically works with Touch Engine, but there's not really quite a mechanism in place to shepherd DATs into PIXERA yet. But that's just another thing to keep in mind. So if you're really a DAT heavy user, just keep that in mind moving forward. But there's tons of other ways that you can exchange data between the two programs.
And just for my sake, what is a DAT?
It's a data operator.
Okay.
It typically takes the format of like a table, like almost like an Excel sheet, and it just purely holds information. You can do different transformations on DATs, and I know it can be used to build out other larger generative systems as well.
Okay, so just and again, you're the one that's been working with this a lot more than I have. So can you still use a DAT in the project before exporting it to Touch Engine? It's just that the translation back and forth doesn't work. Okay, great. So
yeah,
so they could still exist. It's just not something where you can expect a feedback loop between PIXERA and Touch.
Yeah, there isn't really like a one-to-one mapping of what a DAT could be inside of PIXERA, but there's nothing stopping you from using DATs inside of your project.
Got it.
I haven't really run into a lot of things that I haven't been able to do with TouchDesigner either. It's you can still use those things to do your mathematical transformations, whatever those might be. You can still use it to instance geometry if that's something that you want to do. All those are still available to you. It's just not really something that can be passed into PIXERA in the same type of format.
Got it.
I also want to take a moment to shout out Keith Lestrecco, who was the person who made this integration possible. He used something that we're about to get to in the next slide in order to make this integration possible, but I think I'll just go ahead and move on to that, actually. There's a little something we want to call Renderbridge. This is what was used. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so this is our kind of new umbrella feature. This actually isn't really a new feature. This is something that's kind of been in PIXERA for a long time. This is just kind of the first time we're really putting a name to it. It's the same thing that we use to implement things like Unreal Engine and notch blocks into PIXERA. So, it's a name for something that's already existed in PIXERA for quite some time, but just adding a new name and this is another engine that kind of takes advantage of some of what we can do there.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. So while, just like what you said, Bateman, while this is not technically the very first instance of Renderbridge, this is the first one where we're getting a chance to put a name to the software. So as mentioned, this integration is built with Renderbridge. And what the Renderbridge API does is that it extends PIXERA's engine rendering at a low level. One really cool thing about this is that the extensions that are built using the Renderbridge API can be configured to run in a different process than PIXERA. Now, that has its advantages because if, goodness forbid, something were to happen to your tox file to make it crash, it would just close out that process running Touch Engine and still keep the PIXERA process protected and running.
Got it. And you've got a link here, a QR code for our GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
If you are interested in learning more about Renderbridge, other folks out there are making some really cool Renderbridge extensions that we're not allowed to talk about yet, but there's some really cool stuff out there. And, you know, this is something that's open to anyone to get their hands on. So if you've got something cool that you want to interface with the PIXERA render engine directly, this GitHub is open, and that API is open for you to take advantage of. Let's move on to you mentioned a talks again, and I just want to talks and toes and all that. Let's kind of talk about some of that before we dive into the project itself.
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. So talks and toes, they have some very interesting names here, but there's a little bit of a difference between these two files. When you are opening up a standalone instance of TouchDesigner, it's going to open up a toe file. And the toe file is sort of like the editor window. It's the window that you're going to use to do the bulk of your programming. And it's the one that allows you to do things like version up different versions of your editor project. But when you're ready to, like, let's say you've already built out your component, you have everything working nice and smooth, and you're ready to put it inside of PIXERA, the way that you need to do this is to go to the top level of your network, right click on your base component or your container comp, and select to save it as a tox file. The tox file is the one that is compatible with PIXERA, not the toe file. However, when you are building out your projects, it's encouraged to, of course, keep both of these files. You're going to want to keep instancing up different versions of your TouchDesigner editor project, and also export to tox files when you're ready for it.
So just to kind of take it in different terms, a TOE file would be like a Photoshop file, and the tox file would be the JPEG or the PNG that you maybe export out at the end. Obviously a little different, but you know, one is for editing and the other is kind of the finished thing that you're going to end up bringing into another another software, in this case PIXERA.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it.
Cool. So just on the licensing front, can you open up TOE files without like certain license? Does the licensing kind of change between them?
Are you talking about with regard to TouchDesigner licensing?
Yes, not PIXERA licensing, because we've already said that those two are kind of separate.
100%. So there are some differences. Generally, if you don't have any license present and you open up one of these project files, be it a TOE or a TOX, there's going to be a pop-up window asking you to log in, something like that. But when you, depending on your license version, different things could happen as after opening up the project file. For instance, if you have non-commercial and you open up something that's expecting an output of UHD, it's going to limit that to 1280 by 720. But again, non-commercial is not supported with PIXERA. It doesn't mean you still can't open it up inside of TouchDesigner Editor, but when you're exporting and putting it inside of PIXERA, you must have a commercial or a pro TouchDesigner license.
Got it. And do you know, is that process, you know, if I'm on site and I just need to edit, look at something, you know, to check something out, is that process destructive to the save file, or if you open it on a non-commercial and then kind of reopen it with a commercial license, will the project file still work?
Oh, the project file will totally work.
Great.
100%.
Okay, cool. All right. Cool. So how do we bring these into PIXERA? And maybe now is, you know, I know you've got kind of a step-by-step here. So maybe we look at that slide and then we can jump over to the actual project file.
Yeah, that sounds great. So when you're working between PIXERA and TouchDesigner, the current workflow will feel something like this. You will likely open up TouchDesigner Editor first, and you'll be working inside of your TOE file. You'll make all your edits, you make your project look beautiful. And when you are ready and you feel like, okay, this is looking pretty good, you're going to then export the tox file from the root container or base comp. Then after that, that will result in a tox file. And then after that, when you open up PIXERA, ideally you'll close TouchDesigner, although I've had them both open simultaneously. But inside of PIXERA, you'll go to your resources tab, you'll import your tox file, and then you'll apply it to your screen and get programming. Now, you can do something like stream pixels into PIXERA from TouchDesigner Editor using NDI or Spout. However, that connection currently lacks the benefit of the on-timeline parameters, which we'll see a little bit more meaningfully here in a second.
Great. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to just jump back to here, and then we can set up our GUI over here so that we can see our project as we get going.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do this, and we will jump right back into here. All right, so we've got our machine pulled up here, got a bunch of different, I can see now our tox and toe, and we've got a PIXERA project in there. So go ahead and walk us through this.
Oh, wait, hold on. I'm not seeing it. Okay, so everybody can see the screen right now?
Yep, you're live on Hub.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and do this from scratch, and then I'm going to load in a little something, a little bit more of a prepared file.
Great.
So from Hub, I'm going to click on the gear icon for 26.1 R1, and I'll select New Project.
Again, 26.1 R1 available now through Hub. If you go to that online tab over there, it'll actually automatically populate so that you can open it up and download it and install it, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
As we're waiting for PIXERA to load up here, can you talk a little bit about kind of how we got into implementing this and kind of what the hope is for folks to use this for?
Oh, man, I think there was some curiosity around using TouchDesigner inside of PIXERA for a minute here. I guess I know for me, my background, I have been using TouchDesigner for like 14 or 15 years now. And so with my introduction, I was very curious to see how this was going to get pushed forward, and just very happy to have contributed towards that end. It's an ongoing effort, and it's something that, you know, when we started putting it out for our users, there was definitely a lot of curiosity and a lot of traction. So it's something that while I'm certainly curious, our users are also very interested in learning more about it. And the more that folks are using it, the more it's pushing the feature sets forward. So we're always taking feedback. If you guys ever want to, share your thoughts on it, or you would like to see different feature sets, definitely reach out. We'll see what we can do.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right,
so
we're
here
loaded
we
up
are.
here.
Yeah. Here we are in a blank interface. I'm going to go ahead and grab a generic display from the Screens tab. I'm going to grab a generic 50-inch full HD screen. And I'm going to drop it here in the center of my workspace. Zoom in a little bit and make this a little bit more fit form. Okay. So I'm going to hop straight into the compositing tab so I can show y'all what it looks like when we import a tox file. In the resources tab under the media folder, I'm going to make sure that this is selected before I do anything next. And down at the bottom of the pane, there's this little button that says VR. When you select it, you're going to see a bunch of other options here. You know, we have our Unreal Engine integration, which y'all may know, as well as our Notch integration. And then underneath that is the TouchDesigner beta. You can go ahead and select that, and you must select it through this menu. If you drag and drop your tox file into your project file, you're not going to have a good time. You need to go ahead and select the one in question. In this case, I'm going to select this project file called hud.tox, and I'll select open.
Okay, and that imports it just like any other resource, and we've got a logo that says, hey, this is a TouchDesigner resource.
Definitely. And we know it's loaded in because there's a little check mark next to it. If this were an X, that means that it's missing or got moved, and you'll need to right click and replace it. Or you can always re-import it directly through the VR button as well. So now that I'm here, just to get it on the timeline so we can all see it together, what you'll do is that you'll select your tox file, which I just did. and I'll drag it onto my screen. And as I drag it onto my screen, you'll see the TouchDesigner logo appear to indicate, hey, this is the file that you're about to drop onto the screen. So go ahead and drop it. And what's happening right now are a couple things. Your license is being checked right now to see if it's a non-commercial, commercial, or pro license and that it's a valid one. And also, Touch Engine is engaging as a process in the background of your system. So sometimes when I'm doing things like monitoring the health of my system, I will do something like,
Oh no.
oh no,
Oh no. Oh
oh
no.
no,
Everyone, we've had a crash. That's okay. It's, it's bound to happen.
it happens.
So we bring in PIXERA, or we bring in our talks, and that is going to we're going to bring that in, and I know we've got a couple of other things there. Are there any, while we're waiting for this to come back up, are there any other questions? I'm kind of monitoring the chat here, but just wondering if there's any questions coming in. Someone did say low-key not talking about the Unity integration. Something I want to mention about the Unity thing. Yeah, there was a Unity logo in there. I believe that is from it's a like unlocked feature that I have on mine. Right now, we are not currently integrating Unity any further. There's a limitation on the Unity side for multi-server sync. So, right now, that's not something we're working on. I think that's just kind of a leftover feature that I have from an older version. All right. I think we're back. We'll see if we can load this up. And...
Yeah, here we go.
Great. Now the right pop-up has come up.
There we go. This beautiful select extension stream pop-up. So when you select an extension stream, this is always going to be the window that you're met with whenever you're dragging and dropping a TouchDesigner resource onto a screen. And if I go ahead and select the drop down here, I'm going to see a couple of options. And we'll dig into this a little bit more here soon, but I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing. So there's this layer called control, there's this layer called out HUD, and there's this layer called out banana. Out HUD and out banana are the names that I gave out tops, which are required inside of your TouchDesigner file in order to get texture data out of your tox file. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but I also want to take a moment to talk about this control layer. This thing called control is something that is a hard-coded term to describe the import of custom parameters into the PIXERA timeline. So if I've done something like maybe I want to have a dial that I can twirl that changes something on my graphics, like that in my tox file, then that parameter would exist in the control layer. But if I just wanted to do something like pull in texture data, then I would select my out layers. And it will accept any name that you give it, like whatever it is that you've named your out top is what it will be imported as. But you cannot change the name of this layer called control. That just refers to the custom parameters that you make.
Got it. So the out layers or the out extension streams are actual textures that are going to be sent from TouchDesigner into PIXERA, whereas the control is for any sort of parameters that we are sending back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the presence of a control layer allows for some timing data to be exchanged as well.
Oh, thank you, Elgato, for reminding me about my update.
They're looking out for us.
Yeah, really. Thank you, truly.
So I'm going to go ahead and choose the control layer first. You don't have to do this. This is just the way I prefer. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and double click in the space above my layers. And I'm going to make a jump cue by dropping down the operation drop down and selecting jump. It's automatically going to jump to the beginning of my timeline. While I'm here, I'm also going to go ahead and hit this little lock mark. This locks the TouchDesigner resource into memory, which will become important if you're doing something like jumping around your timeline and wanting to make sure that your resource will always be there right when you need it. When the now pointer is over the container and also this lock icon is on, that means that the resources required to render it will always stay locked in memory.
Got it.
So I'm going to go ahead and drag my HUD
Okay.
file onto my screen again.
So we bring it
And
on 2 times if we want more of those layers. So if we just had control that we were sending back and forth, then we would just have the control layer. But if we were also doing the texture, we would need both of them.
yes, that's correct.
Got it.
So you'll need to do this import process for every extension stream that you want.
Got it.
I'm interested in out.hud, so I'm going to go ahead and select that and then press OK. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and rename my layers because they're taking on the name of my tox file. I'll call this one control, just so that I know the difference between it. If I twirl it down, great. And I just want to make sure that's rocking. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this texture file into memory as well. Then I'm going to press play. And voila, we're off to the races already.
Yeah. Now, did that pop in so suddenly because the tox had already been loaded from the control layer?
That's right. Yeah. And so, like I said, when that little wheel is spinning, what's happening is that touch engine is kicking on and it's loading in the tox file. And it was ready to go because I had been sitting there for a little minute. And also, if I were to take my now pointer off of the container and then back on, it will load very quickly because I have locked this into memory.
Got it.
So don't forget that. That's a very important one.
Otherwise, that tox file would actually close if the now pointer weren't over the clip that contains it.
That's true. And there is not really a right or wrong answer here. It's just what's right for your project. Sometimes you might not want to keep, your TouchDesigner file loaded into memory. Maybe you want those resources released for something else, and you really do want to dynamically load it at the time that you need it. That's also a totally valid way to do it. I know for me, I tend to like to lock it into memory. I just like the reassurance of it being there. But we have some cool techniques and cool kick flips that you can do to transition smoothly if you choose to not lock it into memory.
Got it. Okay, well, so we've got it loaded in. This is a great looking project. Is this one that you made this, right, Tavia?
I did make this.
All
yes, absolutely.
So walk us through what we can do here.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to go over some basics here, and then I'll load up maybe a prepared version of this that has more interactions with PIXERA control.
Cool.
So if we were to look down here in the timeline and check out the HUD layer itself, if we twirl this down, we're not going to see a whole lot of options underneath here other than the basic transport options, such as positioning this image or rotating it. We do have this thing called HUD, but there's not really like a drop-down menu. This is a great way to tell, which layer is an image and which one actually has the control parameters in question.
Yeah, so once again, this is the extension layer that's just the texture, only the visuals.
Yep.
Got it.
And I could even like rename this visuals or something that makes sense to me.
Got it.
Yeah. But if we twirl down this one called HUD.control, we look inside, we do see the same transport layers, but HUD this time has a little drop down. So if I hit that, and
we get a whole bunch of options.
Oh yeah, dude, tons. I really outfitted this bad boy with a ton of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. So as mentioned, the control layer is the way that we bring in something called custom parameters. Custom parameters are defined on the top level of your tox file on either that container comp or the base comp. And you would right click and select customize component. And I can show you guys that if you would like to see it.
We'll take maybe walk us through this, and then maybe we could jump into the tox file, look at some of those parameters, and then we'll look at kind of the final product.
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's do that.
Great.
So while at the very, very top, we see something called in top sampler 1 and 2.
And what are just for my knowledge, what are tops?
Tops, that is short for texture operator.
Oh, okay. So basically sending textures back and forth.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
or it's something where you can do different operations on pixel data.
Okay.
So the in top is how we get texture information from PIXERA into the tox file that's on your timeline. And how we're going to know whether or not this works is whether or not something pops up in the bottom right corner of this thing called video input.
Got it.
So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple of standard content pieces. I'm going to choose Austria. I'm going to put it over here over my in top sampler. but I'm not going to place it here. I'm going to place it right here.
Oh, great.
And yeah, immediately it pops up. And that's because I configured this TouchDesigner file to, you know, render in this corner with whatever is coming in from PIXERA. I'm also going to grab this Los Angeles clip and drop it in here. You're not going to see much change, but if I were to instead scroll down to another parameter, let's see, called switch video input, I'm going to keyframe this with false, then keyframe this with true. And what we're going to see is that we're in the Vollern clip here. Maybe I'll zoom in a little bit. And then once we pass this keyframe, now we're in the Los Angeles clip.
Very cool.
Yeah, so you can sort of like keyframe on the PIXERA timeline to switch your video input or your video texture, however it is that you feel. And while I am showing a bool operation here, meaning that I'm using either true or false on the timeline, you can also do different crossfades inside of your tox file, assuming that you've already set it up to do that. Maybe using something like a crosstalk and some other logic therein.
So there's some stuff you can do in TouchDesigner and in the TOE file to export a tox file that would allow you some more nuanced control over that kind of switching. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there, as per usual, you can do kind of whatever you want inside of TouchDesigner. I haven't really found a limitation yet that has, you know, stopped me from doing exactly what it is that I pictured doing. Excuse me. Okay. So some other features right now is that I also have these other parameters called RGB and A. Inside of Touch, when you are creating a custom parameter, there is a type called RGBA, and you can see it in the custom parameter window. We'll take a look at that in a bit. But when you import, you know, of 4-parameter, it will come in with each of its names like this. So, you know, in this case, I have this parameter called UI primary, meaning it's the primary color of my UI. And each of those color channels are separated out into RGB and A, and those import as discrete parameters on PIXERA's timeline. Similarly, down here, the UI secondary color scheme is also coming in as a 4-part parameter called RGB and A. And while that's a lot to keyframe together, you can also use other modules that are built inside of PIXERA Control to control these all in one click,
and I think
as opposed to having to keyframe.
And you've got that for us in that prepared project.
Very That's cool. Correct.
Okay.
There's also some cool other dials here, but I think it would be better suited by checking out that project.
Okay, great.
But yeah.
All right, cool. Well, let's take a look at the tox the TOE file in TouchDesigner. I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. So we can close out of this project.
Sounds
and
good.
We'll go grab the TOE file.
Yeah. I'm gonna wait for this to close, and I'll double click HUD.TOE.
Great.
Also want to take a moment here to let y'all know that in that Renderbridge QR code that we showed earlier, if you scan that and go to it, you also can download this exact project set. So you can check out the HUD.TOE file and also utilize the HUD.tox file to your delight.
Oh, great. Thanks for making that available. While we're getting oriented in the project, we've got a question in the chat asking about latency between passing textures between TouchDesigner and PIXERA.
Once it's loaded, it's pretty quick. I haven't done any direct measurements with it, but I haven't really run into anything where there's a ton of latency. Maybe 1 or 2 frames.
Right. I think an important thing to know is we're not actually passing a texture back and forth. We are literally loading the tox file. I'll get there.
There you go.
We're literally loading the tox file into our render engine. So there's not there's not much back and forth that needs to happen. It is pretty quick. Again, if you're familiar with the Notch integrations or the Unreal integrations, a very similar concept where we're literally hosting the engine inside of our render engine.
Yep.
Cool. So this is the TOE file. I got it.
Yes.
I got it this time.
You're doing so great.
So can you show me like where the, how we're actually, show me just a couple things, like where is the output HUD, the HUD top that's going to be sent to PIXERA, and then where are some of those parameters?
Definitely. So what we're looking at here is on this side of the screen, we're at what I'm referring to as like the top of the project file. I may sometimes call it the root, but when I say the root, I'm actually referring to what is just underneath the surface of this component. So in order, if for those that are not aware, TouchDesigner is a program that nests operators inside of each other. We are at the topmost level, so we're only really seeing 3 operators. This one that's highlighted, this one that's highlighted, and this one that's highlighted.
Right.
But if I want to see all the work that I did, I'm going to press the letter I to go inside of the component and check out a bunch of other cool, delightful things in here.
Great.
So this level, this one right here, is the one where you need to place your in tops, your out tops, and your in chops in order to pass texture information and timing information.
Okay, so we've got DATs, we've got tops. What is a chop?
A chop is a channel operator.
Okay.
It's another way of importing data and changing it and manipulating it.
Okay. Different than a DAT. So they do kind of different things. And I happen to know, so I'm going to say it, that tops are purple and chops are green and DATs are pink. So as we're looking at this project here, that's kind of the difference.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I took a TouchDesigner class once. Shout out Matt Reagan. Thank you.
Oh yeah, more on that later.
Yeah.
So right down here in this section called required for input and output, this is a really critical part. If y'all download this project file, I highly recommend checking out the way that this is set up, because you'll need to do something very similar to how I had done it here in order to get information to pass between the talks and PIXERA. One thing to note is that with these in tops and out tops, this is an out top right here, and these two are in tops, they're highlighted yellow. If these appear anywhere else in your project, that's perfectly fine, but they are going to behave like normal in and out tops. The in tops job is simply to take in texture information into a collapsed component, meaning something that was wrapped up into a container like this. You can even see the inputs here for where to pass texture information in. And similarly, an out top will pass information out of a component. If these in tops and out tops appear any deeper in your network, for example, if I go into here, if they appear here, then they're just going to behave the way that they're expected to behave inside of TouchDesigner natively.
Got it. So there's some structure to to where these in and out tops are placed in your TouchDesigner project, to making sure that they can actually get into and out of PIXERA. Is that documented anywhere?
Yeah, it is. We'll show some links near the end of this presentation. I wrote 2 articles on the TouchDesigner integration. There's part 1 and part 2.
Great.
And all of this is highlighted in those articles.
Okay, cool. So, and just for my understanding, these kind of the sampler 1 and sampler 2 that we have there in our project we just loaded up, when we loaded up the Vollern and the Los Angeles clips, this is effectively where those were showing up.
That's correct.
Great. And
if I had more samplers, then I could slide in more clips.
Got it. And there's not really a way for us to show those at the same time, because again, this is the TOW file where we're doing the editing, and we export the talks, which is the thing we're actually using in PIXERA. So that's just an important thing, I think, for users to understand, is that you can't, it's not like a live editing session that you can do where you're working on your project and you can see it kind of live happening. You have to have the TOW file that you're editing, and then you export it to a talk. So I just want to go over that one more time for folks. Cool. Can we see where some of the parameters get changed before we jump back over to the final project?
Yeah. If I go up a level and I'm back at the topmost level of my project, if I were to make a custom parameter, I would right click on this component and select customize component. Now, I had already set this up, and in fact, you can see the parameters that I had created over here in the bottom left corner of TouchDesigner. But if I wanted to maybe make a new parameter, this is how I would do it. And as you can see, you might see some familiar names like param1, intensity, move waveform, rotate banana. These are all exactly the same parameters as we saw inside of PIXERA earlier. Like that. And I also put the RGB values over here on a page called HUD UI. Something I want to note here is that even if you make a page distinction inside of TouchDesigner, they're all going to import under the same parameter dropdown. There's no page distinction in PIXERA.
Got it. And it goes a little beyond maybe our tech talk here to how to make those, but making these parameters and connecting them to chops inside of our component is something that is a TouchDesigner kind of. If you're a TouchDesigner programmer or creator, that's something you probably already know how to do, or there are resources out there to go figure that piece of it out. That goes a little beyond kind of what we are able to show.
Yeah, that's correct. It's once you are here, you're fully in TouchDesigner land and you're subject to your own programming.
Got it.
It's up to you to build it what it is that you want.
And there are lots of great resources out there in the TouchDesigner world, and it's a great community of folks. So there's a ton of ways to learn about how to make these networks. The important thing is that making those custom parameters and connecting them to things inside of your project is how we get it into PIXERA.
Yep.
Cool. All right. And again, this project and this tow file are available to you. The link will be later on. We'll also, it's on our help juice. We'll definitely make sure that information is definitely out there. Let's dive into that project that you created.
Definitely. I'm going to go ahead and close TouchDesigner here now. I'm not going to save anything. And I'm going to instead open up and make sure my version is the one that I want. I'm going to go over to Hub and check where it says default. It is 26.1 R1. That is my target version. So I'll go ahead and double click HUD.avp.
Cool. And while this is loading, I'm just going to check the chat, see if anything has come up. And
maybe some questions.
No, it does not look like it. Although I'm sure maybe some will come. Yeah, let's see if I can't. No, I can't. I was going to see if I had that link quickly to post, but I don't think I do. So we're just going to vamp until this project loads, which shouldn't take too long. We tested it several times in the lead up to this talk, so hopefully it loads up for us.
We'll find out together.
Checking the chat again. Any other anything else you want to add on kind of creating that project?
On HUD.talks?
Yeah.
We might get to it. We'll see if there's some time. But one particular part I'm really excited about is this timing exchange between PIXERA and TouchDesigner. I mentioned it, but we didn't really go into it too much. With the presence of an in chop on that same level as those in top samplers, with the presence of that doesn't have anything else in it, you can also pass in PIXERA frames and PIXERA seconds into the talks file, which is super useful for timing.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go back to over here. Alrighty. All right. So this project's now loaded up, and
Yes,
I think is our output active?
Is our output active?
Let's see. It is. All right, let's add that in here.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. Excellent. Okay. So here we are with a more outfitted project file. Similar to how I had showed y'all earlier, we do have the HUD the HUD control layer. We also have the banana layer and the HUD graphics themselves. Now, what this means is that I actually have like the presence of two out tops right now. Earlier, we only saw one of them, which was the HUD graphic, but we also have this banana here. And I made a little parameter underneath the control layer called rotate banana. Now you can make the banana spin. Pretty cool. And you can keyframe it on the PIXERA timeline, which I think is really neat.
And
But you also may notice, go
well,
ahead.
and I think that's I think something that's super important, is that ability to keyframe these parameters on a timeline.
Hmm.
I know in my personal use of TouchDesigner in the past, it can be very difficult to do that sort of thing natively in TouchDesigner, to actually like keyframe something on a timeline in a linear fashion. And there are ways to do it. There are definitely ways to do it, but it can be a little tough to get there. So I think that ability to just keyframe these parameters so easily on the timeline is something we're really excited about with this integration.
That's really well said. For me, it saves a lot of time on the programming side that I can just kind of hop in and get pixels out onto my end output, whatever that may be. And it's just really fun to twirl the dials and the knobs and have Pixera handle all of the timing stuff.
Awesome. So yeah, walk us through. I know you had a control network or a control
Yeah.
UI. And again,
Yeah.
this is also in the project that's online.
This one is coming. I
Okay,
have an article that's in the works on it,
got it.
but we'll get it up sooner than later.
Okay, cool.
So once this is up, you will see a control network that looks like this. I have already created a little UI called sliders and buttons. So if I select this module, I go to the UI tab and I select open in browser, it will open my UI into this nice little browser. And I'm going to do some reconfiguration of my screen here so you guys can better see its effect. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit right here. I hope that's pretty
It
good.
is, and you can't see it because it's on the live stream, but I do have the output going, so they can see
Oh,
the
great.
output natively as well.
Oh, can they see the UI that I made?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna show y'all a little bit of interconnection. So you may notice that there's these little I guess stripes in the center of the HUD file. And if I twirl these parameters, now I can control it from this little UI page. I really like this a lot. It's these parameters literally don't do anything except exactly what you see. It makes me really happy.
They just count up and count down. But
Yeah.
importantly, we are showing that they count up and count down. They're connected to a visual element. In
Mhm.
this case, it's just a demo, but in a project, it could be anything.
Yeah, it could actually be, hooked up to something meaningful.
Yeah.
In this case, it's just very pretty.
Right.
Down here, I also have like a primary color palette. So those
Those are the
RGB,
RGBAs. Okay.
yeah, and you can even see them kind of moving and grooving down here on the timeline. So you can see the color change happen. Another very cool thing is right here under web query and extensions. If I go ahead and select query web, what just happened is that I had a web client dat go out to a website, pull down a JSON blob, parse it, put it into storage, and then display it on the output.
Very
All
cool.
of that happened with one button click. And it's just because of the presence of these parameters on the timeline and that I had pre-programmed it that way.
Right. So just to be clear about that workflow, the control button is just triggering up a set of actions to happen in the talks file. Pixera is not really doing anything at this point. It's just we're using TouchDesigner to get that information and then displaying the pixels.
That's correct.
Awesome.
And you can see the parameters called web query and reset storage occurring down here. So if I go ahead and hit reset storage again, you'll see that change from 0 to 1. If I hit query web 0 to 1, it's kind of quick. So
Yeah.
hopefully hit reset storage again. Now, in this case, I do have Pixera control interacting with parameters on the timeline. However, I can also pass information under the hood without having anything exposed as well. And that's something that I think is super cool that I want to show off right here in the bottom left corner. If y'all download hud.talks and on the Renderbridge GitHub, if you look in the tow file, I have some shortcuts already prepared for the OSC portion of this. You go ahead and click that shortcut. It'll take you straight to how I configured the OSC. But in control, if I go to the OSC module here and select send and receive, what you see happening here is that Pixera is both generating data and sending it into the talks file that is on the timeline inside of Pixera. And that talks file is also simultaneously sending out completely unrelated OSC into Pixera which is being extracted and then applied to a parameter on the timeline.
Got it. So we're actually we're sending and receiving OSC from the tox file itself.
Yes, that's correct.
Very cool.
It's a very powerful thing, in my opinion, because it's something where you can use this mechanism not only to drive really cool visuals the way that we see over here in the compositing tab, but you can also use it for things like monitoring health stats, maybe something that's a little bit more considered more of like a background process, something that's a little bit more informational than graphical.
Very cool. Okay, what else? I see like a time driver.
Yeah, so the time driver is something I'd love to highlight. I think is a really important one. So with the import of the control layer inside of PIXERA, what happens is that PIXERA automatically starts passing two channels of data into the tox file. The first frame or the first channel is PIXERA's, I think, seconds, and the second channel is PIXERA's frames, which is what you're seeing displayed here in the center of the HUD.tox file. So you can see if you actually look at the time code here at the top of the timeline, you'll see that it matches up with what we see in the center of the tox file. In order to pass this information, though, it's not like it is automatic, but in order to receive it inside of the tox file, you need to have the presence of an in shop. And the in shop also, I mean, you probably could append other channels to it, but I tend to just drop in a completely empty in shop on that same level as the in tops or the out tops. And automatically those two channels of data are being moved in. But just because I have that timing data going into the tox doesn't necessarily mean that PIXERA is automatically going to be driving the timing of it. I still need to pre-program my tox file to allow PIXERA to drive it, which is the purpose of this area of the tox file called time driver. If I were to, say, twirl down my parameters, and I'm going to keyframe my time driver slightly different. So I'm going to go ahead and pause my timeline. I'm going to keyframe time driver to be true, then move ahead and keyframe it to be false. And all this is doing is deciding who's driving the time of this playback of this count movie file. So if I move this now pointer forward, we'll see that the frames are rendering. But then if I move it back, we'll see that that number keeps counting up. That is because TouchDesigner is driving the playback of this movie file according to how it wants to, which I believe I had set it to be sequential on the movie file in top.
So independent of what PIXERA's timeline is doing.
Yeah, it still will only render every time it gets an update, like when I move them now pointer forward.
Right.
But it's saying that's cool, PIXERA, but I want to, keep the frames moving forward always according to what I want to do.
Right. So there's some interesting programming you can do to have, pauses and other kinds of cues in the timeline and still have content playing back appropriately in TouchDesigner if you wanted.
Definitely.
Very
If instead I change my time driver over to here, we're in false. Now, if I move my now pointer forward, we'll see that number count up. But then if I move it backward, it counts down. So now PIXERA is driving the playback of that movie file. And that will probably matter in the future once we have our synchronization method come up, but it's a little too early to speak more to that.
Got it. Very cool.
Yeah.
I think that's about all the time we've got. And there's maybe a few questions. One thing I just want to mention before we leave is there is all of this can be composited with regular PIXERA content as well. So, this is still just a texture in PIXERA. If you're familiar with what we can do with the notch blocks and with Unreal projects, it's all the same kind of stuff. So PIXERA treats it fundamentally like that. Okay, real quick, let's see if we've got any questions. And Tavia, if you could go to the slideshow and pull up that the link to the project, and we'll leave that up kind of at the end here.
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and close this project.
Yeah. So someone's asking if there's a chance of passing DATs. Is there any plans to also pass the timeline timecode string? So I think that's kind of what Tavia was just showing, is that we can pass the Tavia, or it's not the Tavia string, the timecode string back and forth. So I do think that is possible. Okay. Plans for multi-server. Yeah, so multi-server, we're just working on the kind of sync for that kind of thing to make sure that all works. There's a mechanism in place. We just want to make sure that it works appropriately. So it is in process. It's just a matter of where do we go with it? We want to make sure it's solid before we put it out there, that kind of thing. This is the QR code for to download that file and everything. So if you want to go download that, we'll leave that here. Excuse me.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and blow through ahead to a couple of resources we want to leave y'all with before. Great. Yeah. So here are the QR codes to the articles I had mentioned earlier. The one on the left is part 1, where we'll go over a little bit more about how do we import the tox file directly? How do we already get it on the timeline already? And then part 2 talks about the actual anatomy of a tox file in preparation for import into PIXERA. And
I believe that in part 1, the project files are also linked in that help juice article.
Yeah, they are. You'll be able to find them there. And if you have any troubles, please let us know. Send us in a ticket. You shouldn't, but let us know.
Great.
Another thing to check out is that on our Discord, we have a channel called TouchDesigner Integration. There's 2 channels within that, one called Chat, one called Show Your Work. You can come hang out and chat with me and my buddy, Cody. We'll be answering any TouchDesigner questions y'all have. If you want to maybe talk through some workflows, we're really responsive in there. Send us your ideas, send us your questions. We'd love to hear them.
Cool.
And then I'm very excited to announce the next thing, Bateman.
Great.
In May this year, we're going to be hosting in the Santa Monica, Los Angeles PIXERA office a workshop on exactly this integration, but it won't be me teaching and it won't be Bateman teaching. It will instead be our friends over at Pseudo Magic. They are very talented touch designer artists and developers, and they're going to be focusing on real-time pipelines that bridge TouchDesigner and PIXERA. It's going to be a 3-day intensive workshop that is made specifically for live event professionals and media server programmers. And our instructors are there, as you can see, be Matthew Reagan, Zoe Sandoval, and Ian Shalansky. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll be posting some information up soon for a registration link. But before that, be sure to check out Pseudo Magic's website and their Instagram.
Sweet. Yeah, we're super excited to host them. Excited to have Matt and Ian and Zoe in the office and working with us. They are, kind of the best of the best when it comes to TouchDesigner. Really? And they know their stuff for sure. And, really excited to be working with them. Awesome. Well, I think that's it. I'm going to check the chat one more time. There's a question on what load would this place on the server. We kind of talked about that at the beginning. The load it places on the server is up to the tox file itself, and that's not something that PIXERA can police. So it is up to how complicated your project is. Better computer will be able to run more intense projects. And then someone asking, there's a specific timecode object in TouchDesigner that is parsed from a string. So I'll have to look into that. Maybe Tavia knows more. Do you know? Okay, we'll have to look into that one.
I'd be more than happy to answer. I think I'll need some more information. Yeah, but maybe we could take that to the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. Just join us in the Discord. We can continue that conversation there. All right. Yeah. Well, that is officially our time. I just want to thank Tavia for joining us today and walking us through all that. I think it's a really great feature, and we're super excited about it, and just can't wait to see what people start making and using this for. I think it's going to be a really cool opportunity for lots of new users to get into the PIXERA ecosystem, and for us to just kind of see what folks do with you know, a little more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what our users make. I think it's going to open up a whole world of possibilities.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tavia. Thanks everyone for watching. And if you're watching after this live stream, thank you so much for tuning in and joining. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care.
Thanks, y'all.